to Season 4, Episode 1 of Vixen, a Black beauty and pop culture podcast. If you enjoy what you hear today, please leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts. Today's episode is all about hashtag the story, aka the Zola story, and how it impacted digital storytelling. Now, let's start the show. Hello. Hi, guys. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Vixen. We are back for Season 4. Oh my God. Wow. Can't believe we're on Season 4. I know I say that every time we start a new season, but it's just something about this one. It's number 4, and we haven't even hit our year anniversary, which is coming up really, really soon. So to already be in my 4th season, it just means a lot, y'all. And I really, really missed podcasting, and I'm very excited to be back. I think because this hiatus that I'm coming off of now was my longest one yet. I've never had a break this long from doing the show. I just really miss talking to y'all every single week, running my mouth and talking y'all heads off. So I'm really, really excited to be back. So if you're new here, the podcast runs in seasons that are 10 episodes long, and then we take a short break in between every season. But this is a really, really good time to be new though, because we are kicking off a brand new season, one that I personally believe, I'll let y'all be the judge, but I personally believe that this is the best one yet. And I truly mean that. I mean, you guys have given me some amazing suggestions. I've taken some feedback from y'all on like topics that you want me to cover, people that you would like for me to talk about. Like, we've got a lot of really, really exciting topics to cover this season, and I'm very, very, very proud of this season's episodes, y'all. I cannot wait for y'all to hear the entire thing. But for now, I am so happy to be back. I missed y'all, and I'm ready to run my mouth. Okay. We're starting this season off with a bang with today's episode, which I am very, very excited about. So let's get into it.
Hi, Liz! You want to hear a story about how me and this bitch fell out? It's kind of long, but it's full of suspense.
Why you on my Twitter? Why you on my Facebook? Why you on my Tumblr?
Why are you DMing me? Sis, why are you tagging me in photos? You don't even fuck with me.
Sis.
Let me know.
Sis.
Let me know.
Yes, sis.
We just met yesterday and you already trying to take whole trips together?
Be ready by 2.
Money, titties.
From here on out, watch every move this bitch make.
I don't fuck with you. No more.
I didn't do nothing wrong.
Unless you live under a rock, I know y'all remember the most recognizable story of hoism, the Thodacy, the very, very iconic Twitter moment known as hashtag the story, written by Asia Zola King. The story has now been adapted into a movie called Zola, and the tweets have been made into a book thanks to Zola herself and A24. But again, before it was a book, before it was a movie, it was an infamous Twitter story. Let's talk about what elements made the story an instant classic and the lasting effect that it had on digital storytelling, especially on Twitter. Before we get into it, let me just start off by thanking A24 and the Zola team for partnering with me for this episode. Like, y'all, can y'all say on brand? Like, when I say on brand, like right up my alley, like, period. Okay. Thank you guys so much for thinking of me. I was ecstatic when they reached out because I have been waiting patiently for this movie since the day that it was announced that it was even going to be a thing. So this is just really, really exciting. I'm so happy for Zola, and I'm just like, I'm over the moon. Thank you guys again. All right. So now let's get started for real. Let me take y'all back to October 2015. Asia King, also known as Zola, took to Twitter to vent about why she and a former friend fell out. So Twitter was the perfect platform to tell a story that was kind of long, but full of suspense. Those are Zola's words, not mine. So the thread told the story of how a white girl named Jessica befriended Zola at Hooters, where Zola worked. The two of them connected over them both being exotic dancers, both being about their money. Y'all know the vibe. So Jessica convinced Zola to join her on a hoe trip to Florida. They were supposed to just go dance at different clubs throughout Tampa, but what Jessica really was trying to do was bring Zola in on the quote unquote arrangement that she had with her pimp, basically attempting to trick Zola into working for said pimp. The trip literally becomes a nightmare, y'all, where Zola has to play manager, therapist, bodyguard, hostage, stripper, literally everything, you name it. It's actually quite nuts how Zola manages to stay relatively calm through like a clusterfuck weekend full of chaos. All 148 tweets spread like wildfire, and before you knew it, it had hundreds and thousands of retweets. Like Missy Elliott, Ava DuVernay, everybody and their mama was talking about this story. People who read it were finding the social media accounts of other people that were involved. Those people were firing back with responses. It was a lot. When I say this week. When I say that week on Twitter was epic, it was crazy. Like everybody was obsessed with that story. And if you were around on Twitter or just online, because it spread to other platforms at that time, then you know it was mayhem. People were calling it the Thodacy, like the Odyssey, y'all, keep up, the greatest saga ever tweeted, and a lot more. So here's a quote from Zola coming from her 2021 profile on Vulture. After the attention from the Twitter thread came the offers. It was instantaneous, she says. People were like, there needs to be a movie. And then maybe the next week, people were calling my phone and I'm like, how did you get my number? People were sending her their script, she says, and asking her to put her Zola twist on it for no money. She declined. I appreciate art, but you're not getting free labor. End quote. My personal opinion, the reason this thread had people so entranced was because for some, it was a world they had never stepped foot in and were fascinated by. But then on the other hand, for other people, the story was relatable. Like if you've ever worked in any form of sex work, including stripping, camming, waitressing in sexy spots like clubs or certain restaurants, then you already know the sexual violence and harassment that is faced by those who do this for a living. Here's another quote from a 2015 Washington Post article called The True Story Behind Zola, the epic Twitter story too crazy to be real. While Wells' story may have seemed crazy, however, and while Wells herself is hilarious, there's nothing unusual or funny about its sheer level of violence. According to a 2014 study published in the American Journal of Public Health, between 32 and 55% of all sex workers have experienced workplace violence in the past year. For some of them, that's physical assault. For others, it's manipulation, coercion, or psychological abuse. The response to Wells' story is indicative of how unfamiliar people are with sex workers' lives, says Sienna Baskin, the managing director of the Sex Workers Project, a New York-based advocacy group. Sex workers do experience a really high level of violence, in large part due to the criminalization and the stigmatization of their work. End quote. So y'all, like the article says, the story is hilarious because Zola is hilarious. But although it entertains us, at the same time, the story doesn't glorify or make light of what sex workers go through. I looked at the story's funny parts as Zola's way of dealing with what had happened to her and how lucky she was to survive it, but I don't think she was trying to glorify any part of it at all. The story introduced folks to an unfamiliar world in a very fun, playful way, but it was also very serious because it shined some light on a situation that's all too common and it started conversation around the issue. After the Zola story's popularity, there were many threads out there, but none of them, and I mean none of them, have ever captured the attention of the general public in the way the Zola story did. Now, let's talk about what made this particular thread so special. So, this is my thoughts, y'all. I personally say it's the way that it was written. I think the tone played a really big part in this because at the time, Twitter only gave us 140 characters. I believe we have 280 now. Don't quote me. But at the time, we only had 140 characters per tweet. But the story still managed to be really descriptive and you kind of felt like you were there with them. It was written almost as if Zola was writing a story that she wasn't even involved in because of how many things that were going on around her that she observed and picked up on. It almost felt like there was an omnipresent unknown narrator. I don't necessarily think the average person in that situation would have become that observant of everybody's body language and attitude around them. Your fight or flight would kick in and you might become a little bit more vigilant, but it was just for her to be in direct danger like that and just pick up on everything around her. I don't really think the average person could have done that. So I think the way that the story was written and how descriptive it was played a really big part in how it just drew people in. Another was the language. Like, if I remember correctly, at this time, the only time I had ever even seen stories being told on Twitter, they were written by like a random like blue check having white person about just like things I just didn't care about, like, so this was the first time, the Zola story, this was the first time that I saw a thread that was written using language that I understood, and also about a world that I understood as well. And these were the days when going viral was nowhere near as easy as it is now. So when you went viral at that time, it was very authentic. That means you had something good, Being able to go viral, have everybody talking about it and staying relevant, it just was not an easy task at that time. So now that y'all got the background of the Zola story, I want to talk a little bit about how it changed the digital landscape. As always, whenever something takes the internet by storm, there's many a think piece to follow behind it. Y'all know this. Think pieces are defined as, quote, articles containing discussion, analysis, or opinion as opposed to fact or news, end quote. Now, think pieces about pop culture events and phenomena existed well before Zola, but I had never seen think pieces on what random people on Twitter were talking about. Like, that wasn't a thing. And looking back at that and never seeing that kind of article, it's crazy because today, and no shade, but it's true, a lot of media outlets rely on Twitter for their material. I mean, like, writers really base articles off of some random person on Twitter's casual tweets that just so happen to go viral and become timeline fodder. A really good example of that is, I don't know, some of you guys might know what I'm talking about, some may not. I only saw the backlash from the thread. I didn't see I didn't see it as it was happening in real time like I saw the Zola thread. But a few months ago, I believe a girl and her mom went on vacation in Jamaica, and they were detained, and she was saying that she was kidnapped, but she had really just tested positive for COVID, which is like crazy to tell that story. But she just tweeted that randomly. It went viral, and then people started looking into her and her mom and the whole situation, and like news outlets were reporting it. It just got so out of hand, and it's crazy that just like somebody just tweeting BS, a lie, or like a random story, just talking about whatever happened to them, it can go viral and become national news. It's insane. This was something that I had to get used to because, like I said, things that happened on social networks between everyday people really didn't become a topic for a thoughtful article on like the Washington Post, You might see a news outlet report on something that happened on Twitter between like a celebrity and another celebrity, or a celebrity and a fan, but never just like two everyday people. But this is exactly what happened with the Zola Twitter story. Here are some of the think piece articles from the time. Zola's insane Twitter story is Showgirls for 2015. Loved that because I love Showgirls. Aftermath of viral Twitter story points to injustices sex workers face. Absolutely, we love awareness. Someone get Zola a Pulitzer, or I always say Pulitzer Prize. Is it Pulitzer? Pulitzer Prize, y'all know what I'm talking about. Someone get Zola a Pulitzer, or potentially a spot in the witness protection program. That was my exact thoughts when I was reading it at the time. I was like, they all live in the same city. What if they come back? What if they send somebody? Does she have a bodyguard? Yes. Twitter has made it impossible to ignore the reality of sex work. Again, we love awareness. And then lastly, hashtag the story of Zola and the brutal criminalization of sex work. Again, we love awareness. Thank you. But that's just a few of the think piece articles that were coming out after the thread's popularity. The story just had everybody thinking critically. Like some people might have been thinking a little too critically, child, but no. It was a lot, but it was a lot of really good conversation happening. So that was a time where I wasn't too mad about the think piece. Like, ever since the thread popped off, we have absolutely had not one break from a think piece, y'all. We never knew peace again after the Zola story. People will write a think piece on like any random tweet. Like some guy went viral for talking about like beans or something, and I saw some crazy article about it that was like 3 pages long. And I was like, come on, y'all. Again, y'all be thinking too critically sometimes. Another thing that I noticed post Zola, even more so than the think pieces, was an influx of threads that tried to use a similar formula to Zola's story. So now, again, y'all, now some of y'all may not remember this. It might be like a little bit of the Mandela effect, because I was telling my friends this and they were like, no, that's not true. And I'm like, no, look it up. In 2015, when Zola shared her story on Twitter, the thread feature, it did not exist. I'll give y'all a moment to process that. It's true. We did not get threads on Twitter until 2017. So when you were reading her tweets in real time, like if you were someone that was on her page while it was happening, you had to scroll all the way down on her page to the beginning and just read up and just keep refreshing for new tweets. You would be losing your place. It was crazy. Like, it was old school. Now we have our threads. It's nice and neat, you know, but back then, no. You had to just refresh for new tweets and just keep scrolling up and down, up and down, up and down. Here's another quote from that Vulture article I mentioned earlier. If you can't remember where you were on the October night that the story moved from Black Twitter to the mainstream, you may at least remember the way the internet was in 2015. How much harder it was for things to achieve true virality and stay in the public discourse for as long as Zola's story did. Now, a tweet that says, once I learn how to spell restaurant, it's over for you hoes, can emerge from the void and get 100,000 likes and retweets. But at the time, threads were a new enough concept that Zola can plausibly claim she invented them in her Twitter bio. End quote. So what do you guys think about that? I think Zola can totally claim that she was the inspiration for the thread feature. I mean, the popularity of her story made story times a regular thing on Twitter. I would say it's probably the most enjoyable part of Twitter for many people. Like, we've had the flued out stories, the side nigga stories, the Uber ride gone wrong threads, the horror story threads, people airing out their exes. Like, the list truly goes on and on and on and on. It only makes sense that this is where Twitter got the inspiration for the feature. I'm just saying, I would bet money that the popularity of the Zola story made them want to do threads. Listen, I'm just saying, I would bet money on that. And I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys think that they got it from there? Like, is that why they wanted to do it? Because, again, people have been telling stories on Twitter. It just, nobody cared, you know what I mean? But I really do think that she was the inspiration for them to make the thread feature. And also, there are other threads on Twitter that are, you know, informative and serious, more so than the types I listed earlier. But let's be honest, that's boring. We want the scandals, the ratchet. That's what people want to hear. Folks saw that this is what the people, the general public, wanted. So, you know, they wanted to recreate the magic of the Zola story. A lot of the threads that we see now are clearly formulated to go viral, in my opinion. Like, I'll tell y'all what I think the formula that they're following is. Okay, so, you know, there's like a call to action to start. For example, the first tweet is, story time, insert crazy opening sentence that catches the eye. Then they've got all these memes and GIFs to go along with the rest of their tweets. And it's usually like the craziest story that, you know, anybody could think of. So Zola's thread, which remember, technically wasn't even a thread because the feature didn't exist yet, is still, to this day, it's still the formula people use to go viral on Twitter, especially when they've got a long, crazy story to tell. We've also seen this formula be replicated and taken over to YouTube, where story times are insanely popular. And the crazier and more shocking your story is, the more subscribers that you gain. They are using the exact same formula. Like on YouTube, I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's the same thing, a call to action in the title. It's like a very, very crazy title, makes you click it. They also have like a thumbnail that they've edited that has all of this stuff in it, and like the memes and the GIFs and like just all types of craziness. And you click it, it could be clickbait, it could be a true story, who knows? It's literally the same formula that viral threads on Twitter try to use, which they adapted from Zola's story. So every social media platform has subcultures, and one of the biggest ones back in the day on Twitter was known as Ho Twitter, also sometimes called Cherry Emoji Twitter. Love that name. That community on Twitter was spearheaded by Jessica Font and Taylor Crenshaw, aka Nicole Milfy. I just want to take this moment to say rest in peace, Nicole Milfy. She was truly an icon She was an amazing writer, and if you were not on Twitter at that time, like, you really missed out. She was just amazing, and if you ever have a chance to check out some of her work, I highly recommend that you do if you're not familiar with her. So I just wanted to take the time out to say rest in peace, Nicole Milfy. So I would describe Ho Twitter as a group of young, progressive Black women who were smart as hell, loved pop culture, fashion, film, and more. These women also spoke very openly about sexuality with each other in a way that I had never seen young Black women do publicly, and definitely not online while showing their faces. And you didn't do that online. But however, remember, this was a subculture, so it was kind of like a if you know thing on Twitter, even though many of the women in Ho Twitter had thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. Before the Zola story started to go viral, the members of Ho Twitter circulated the tweets heavily, which helped put them on a lot of people's timelines. That's actually how it got on mine. Once the story went viral, more and more women started sharing stories online that were of a sexual nature or just about things that were, looked at as taboo, like stripping, getting flued out, all kinds of things that Black women did not talk about on the timeline. I mean, if you were online like 2013, 2014, and before that, you already know it was not how it is now with Black women speaking openly about their sex work or even just like their personal sexuality. Like, there was a lot of respectability politics going on Black Twitter. And most people who talked about that kind of stuff who were Black women, they were anonymous. Like, for example, the Sugar Bowl community on Tumblr, the Black girls that were involved in that. There were Black girls who had anonymous Twitter accounts, things like that. People weren't necessarily showing their pictures and being so open with sexuality online. The circulation of the Zola story helped those kinds of conversations on Twitter become more mainstream, and it helped a lot of other women get more comfortable with speaking about these things online. Like, for example, that story contributed a lot to what we see now with city girl culture, flued out culture, sugar baby culture, all of that, etc., etc., etc. A lot of the tweets that we see are just regurgitated versions of the Zola story, and that is why the story is just that much more impactful. So, moving on. Y'all have heard about how the Zola thread came about, how it took these here internets by storm, the impact it had on digital storytelling. Now let's talk about the present. By the time you guys hear this, Zola will be in theaters and the official book of Zola's tweets will be available for purchase. First of all, let me just say that all of this is surreal. Like, it's major. There's no other way to describe it. Like, we've heard of articles being adapted into major motion pictures such as the Bling Ring movie. I believe, yes, that started off as an article. Hustlers with J-Lo started off as an article. I'm sure that article in Elle magazine about Anna Delvey, the Soho grifter, will be turned into a movie or a miniseries, but never has a viral tweet, let alone a viral Twitter story, been turned into a film. Simply iconic. There's no other way to describe it. Now, I've seen the movie, and the thing that I was most curious about it is how can a series of tweets be turned into a full script? But the movie shocked me with how much it stayed true to what we all read together originally. Like, even though it stayed very, very true to the tweets, which I appreciated because it didn't add a lot of filler to like fill in any gaps. It just really just went off of what Zola said, and the tweets were quoted throughout the movie, but not in a way that made it like cringy. Like, it didn't pop up on the screen or anything like that, but some of the quotables from the tweets were like weaved into the script, like where it just was like a character would be saying something and then like that part would be said. It wasn't corny at all. I loved that. And even though it stayed very, very true to the tweets, it still felt like a complete story, So I just feel like Janixa did what needed to be done. I was very, very, very impressed with that. And I just really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great. It was just surreal to see a story that I like watched unfold on the timeline be turned into a movie, and it was just done so well with so much care, and I just really enjoyed it. So do you guys think that we'll see more tweets or threads or even just like trending topics on Twitter be turned into films or series? That could be interesting. I think it's going to happen because I feel like a lot of people are going to be inspired by what was done with Zola, and they're going to want to try it themselves. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought it wasn't going to work. They didn't know how tweets could be turned into a movie, but I know because I've seen it that once other people see it, they're going to be like, maybe I should try that. I don't know. What do y'all think? Either way, I'm cool with it if it brings us more original content. Like, one of the things that makes me so happy about Zola's release is that we have been in a remake rut recently. Like, everything has been a remake or a remake of a remake. Like, it's just a lot, especially with a lot of Black content that's been coming out. A lot of it has been a remake. And don't get me wrong, I'll be honest, I have liked a lot of them. I've enjoyed a lot of them, but it's just getting old. So it's really exciting to be getting a fresh, original story based on a story that I remember. Something that, just happened in my lifetime. And it's not something old that was updated to appeal to me. Nah, it's a part of online history that I was actually a part of. And I feel like a lot of us can relate to that and are going to feel, kind of connected to the film because of that, because we remember when it happened. That's another thing that makes the movie so special, just it being a part of recent online history. Like, I will never get over this story being made into a movie, mainly because the story is so relatable. And it's a large part of pop culture. It's a large part of Black girl culture. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find a Black girl online in 2015 who wasn't talking about the Zola story with her friends. I just feel like we need more films that speak to that experience and that audience. Oh, another thing. One of the things that really stood out to me, probably the most about the movie, was the attention to detail. Not only just like the story and like weaving in quotes from the tweets and regular conversation, but also the clothes. Like, the clothes, I was like, yes. Like that, there's this like pink sequin two-piece that Zola wears like throughout the movie. I think she wears it in a few scenes, and that two-piece, y'all, that it had the girls in a chokehold. You could not escape it on the Instagram boutiques. You could not escape it on AliExpress. Like, that was just so accurate. Like, them being in the car listening to the Migos, I just really appreciated the small details like that. And I was like, oh yes, okay, the research was done here. But I remembered that a Black woman, Janixa Bravo, directed it and wrote the screenplay alongside Jeremy O. Harris, a Black man, and that Zola herself is an executive producer on the film. I mean, overall, like, they just did their thing, y'all. I love how involved Zola was with the movie, and I'm so happy that she's getting her flowers. So to close this out, y'all know I'm an internet girl, a digital doll, if you will. So seeing the Zola story unfold on my timeline in real time, being able to not only relate to the content, but also the voice that was telling the story, then hearing the news about the film and being so hyped for it, to now seeing it come out is just, wow. It just feels like such a full circle moment. And for those of you that were online at the time, y'all know the feeling. I hope that this means a very, very long career for Zola is on its way, and I cannot wait to see more from her. Nearly all of my girlfriends were just as hyped as I was about the release of the movie, so I asked them, like, what made the Zola story so important? How did they relate to it? And what about it is memorable to them? So I thought it would be fun to end this episode with a few condensed quotes from some of my girls. Here we go. So this is from my best friend, Gabrielle. Hey, Gabby. I loved how the Zola thread was written. It makes it so that you literally cannot stop. I remember the first time I read, I texted you immediately like, friend, this could have happened to us on that trip that girl roped us into. But luckily we ran and her pimp was inexperienced AF. LOL. These girls will literally go off the agenda and get you in some mess. LMAO. I love how this showed you that you can really just be chilling and innocent and then end up around something wild. That's literally so much of what being a young girl who's outside is like. And when you tell the world, they be shocked. Great storytelling skills, very captivating, 10 out of 10. End quote. This is from my friend Danny. Hey, Danny. So she says that, she's talking about the story here, y'all, set Twitter off with the threads. I was sold from the fact that they were from the D. That was the first thread I read beginning to end and was super invested. It was like reading Eric Jerome Dickey, but in short form, end quote. It really was like reading Eric Jerome Dickey. That was a perfect comparison. So this quote is from my friend Taylor. Hey T. She says, Zola was the first person with a super viral thread on Twitter. It was so immersive with the relatability and the tone she used. It was like talking to y'all. She's referring to the group chat, y'all. Like, wow, girl. But also, there were so many burning red flags that I didn't know how the journey got so far. This was also during the first wave of celebrity strippers, so it was like a peek inside of a world we didn't know much about at the time. I just remember being glued to my phone, end quote. This is from my very, very good sis, Erica. If you've ever joined me on Instagram Live, y'all know Erica. She said, I think Asia revolutionized Twitter. Now, everybody's trying to do a thread and get it turned into a movie. 1, they not really living that life. And 2, you trying too hard. Also, I think she influenced the sex worker / hoe aesthetic and brought light to that whole side of the internet. In early 2015, girls were going on hoe trips, but they weren't talking about it publicly. Her story is pretty common for girls who are hip to that life. The way that she threaded up her story and was able to build it up and maintain a respectable brand as a sex worker, or however she will refer to herself, is inspiring, end quote. It's from my friend Shawnee. Shawnee said, at that time we had Ho Twitter, and once they helped push the Zola thread, it really became more common to be open about that stuff and have a public identity based around it. Now, everyone is open about having an OnlyFans and other forms of sex work. The Zola story influenced that, even if people don't realize it. Okay, and here's the last one from my girl TG. I just remember my favorite quote from it. He was lost in the sauce and that bitch was lost in the game. End quote. All right, guys, so that is the story of the lasting impact of the famous, not infamous, Zola story. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope that y'all went to go see Zola already. If you haven't, go see it and hit me up. Let me know what you think so we can kiki. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see y'all next week with an all new episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to Vixen. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a review. If you have a submission, feel free to email vixenpodcast@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with an all new episode.